What if your morning workout accidentally documented the beginning of a nation's collapse? Picture this: a fitness instructor in Myanmar filming her daily exercise routine in early 2021. Unknowingly captured military convoys rolling toward the parliament building behind her. That spontaneous footage became one of history's most haunting records, the moment a country's fragile democracy shattered into pieces. Fast forward to today, and Myanmar remains trapped in unprecedented turmoil. More than 75,000 lives have been lost since violence erupted, while over 3.5 million people have been forced from their homes. The military now controls just 21% of the nation's land, with rebel forces holding 42% and the rest bitterly contested. Democracy's promise has dissolved into endless warfare, where survival itself becomes the only certainty for millions caught in the crossfire. When nature strikes a broken land, March 28, 2025, brought devastation from an entirely unexpected direction. At midday, a catastrophic magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck near Mandalay, followed 12 minutes later by another powerful tremor measuring 6.7. For a country already drowning in conflict, this natural disaster felt like cruel punishment from forces beyond human control. The earthquake claimed between 3,600 and 5,350 lives in Myanmar alone, with over 11,000 people injured and tens of thousands more left homeless. More than 10,000 buildings crumbled. Hospitals, temples, homes, and critical infrastructure disappeared within seconds. Poor construction standards and absent building regulations turned what should have been survivable tremors into mass casualties. The quake even reached Bangkok, 800 miles away, where a construction tower collapsed. Myanmar's tragedy deepened as humanitarian aid struggled to reach survivors trapped in war zones, leaving countless communities to face this catastrophe completely alone. A country divided against itself, Myanmar today exists as a nation only on maps. The reality is far more fragmented and chaotic. General Min Aung Hlaing claims to govern from the capital, yet his authority barely extends beyond urban centers and strategic military installations. In vast rural territories, his government is nothing more than a distant abstraction, replaced by competing armed factions who establish their own rules and boundaries. The breakdown is so complete that people in some regions have abandoned Myanmar's official currency entirely, reverting to ancient barter systems or using neighboring countries' money instead. Every major ethnic community has mobilized for war, fighting not just the central military but frequently battling each other in shifting, unpredictable alliances. Yesterday's partners become today's enemies as control over towns and villages changes hands with alarming regularity. This isn't simply civil war, it's the complete disintegration of a state, creating dangerous power vacuums where any semblance of law or order has vanished entirely. Criminal empires rise from the ruins. Where legitimate governance collapses, criminal enterprises inevitably flourish with remarkable speed and sophistication. Myanmar's breakdown has transformed it into Southeast Asia's new epicenter for illicit activities operating at industrial scale. Methamphetamine production facilities run openly in territories beyond government reach, manufacturing drugs that flood regional and international markets with devastating consequences. Human trafficking networks have expanded dramatically, preying on desperate refugees and displaced populations who have exhausted all legitimate survival options. Weapons dealers operate thriving black markets, supplying arms to all sides while profiting handsomely from perpetual conflict. Perhaps most disturbing is the explosion of sophisticated online scam operations, which have prompted neighboring countries to consider increasingly aggressive interventions. International criminal syndicates now view Myanmar as prime real estate for operations spanning multiple countries. These organizations have grown so powerful that they negotiate directly with armed groups, exchanging funding and resources for territorial access and protection. The ethnic battlefield understanding Myanmar's conflict requires grasping its extraordinary ethnic complexity and the simultaneous eruption of long-suppressed independence movements. In the mountainous north, the Kachin Independence Army wages its decades-long campaign for autonomy or outright independence from Myanmar. The Arakan Army has achieved remarkable military success in western Rakhine State, capturing 14 of 17 townships and seizing a strategically vital regional military headquarters. Chin State has fractured into competing militias, each claiming to represent the future independent nation of Chinland. Karen and Karenni armed groups continue historic struggles for ethnic homelands spanning generations. The Three Brotherhood Alliance, comprising the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, Thames National Liberation Army, and Arakan Army launched Operation 1027 in October 2023, capturing multiple district capitals. The People's Defense Force operates across central and southern regions, ostensibly fighting to restore federal democracy. However, their expanding presence creates tension with ethnic militias who fundamentally reject any future political union under centralized authority, regardless of its democratic character. China's calculated gamble: no foreign power has more invested in Myanmar's future than China. And Beijing's strategy reveals both sophistication and uncomfortable contradictions. China has poured billions into Myanmar's infrastructure, viewing it as absolutely essential to geopolitical ambitions and economic security. Yet Beijing confronts an impossible puzzle. Fully supporting any single faction risks catastrophic retaliation from others who could threaten Chinese investments and border stability. China has steadily deepened its involvement, attempting to end the fighting to preserve both the military regime and economic interests, including critical minerals, energy resources, and strategic infrastructure projects. Beijing maintains relationships with ethnic armed groups controlling territory along the Chinese border, increasingly viewing them as potentially better guarantors of stability than the faltering junta. Myanmar represents China's only neighboring country, offering direct overland access to the Indian Ocean, bypassing the South China Sea and Malacca Strait, where American naval power could choke shipping during major confrontations. For Beijing, maintaining influence over this corridor is merely advantageous, absolutely vital to national survival in any future superpower conflict. Regional powers navigate treacherous waters. India has attempted to replicate China's balancing strategy, but struggles significantly, lacking the economic leverage and deep relationships that give Beijing such extensive influence. New Delhi's primary concern focuses on securing its northeastern frontier, where insurgent groups operate from Myanmar bases, launching attacks against Indian territory with relative impunity. India has quietly cooperated with Myanmar's military leadership, sharing intelligence and conducting controversial cross-border operations. Thailand finds itself uncomfortably trapped between American pressure for more active engagement and acute awareness that destabilizing Myanmar could unleash chaos and massive refugee flows across its borders. Russia has provided weapons and diplomatic support to the junta, though its capacity for continued assistance remains uncertain given Ukraine war commitments. The United States maintains strategic ambiguity, officially providing only non-lethal aid to the exiled civilian government, while experienced observers suspect considerably more covert assistance. Washington has imposed sanctions targeting military officials and their business interests. The strategic logic of challenging China's overland corridors, compelling establishing friendly autonomous territories near Indian and Bangladeshi borders, would directly threaten Beijing's most important infrastructure investments. Hope beyond the horizon. Myanmar's tragedy illustrates how rapidly nations unravel when competing interests collide with historical grievances and military ambition in perfect storms of instability. What began as spontaneous footage of a morning workout has evolved into a complex geopolitical chessboard where great powers maneuver proxies and shape outcomes from the shadows. The conflict has become a testing ground where strategies are refined for future confrontations across the region. Most analysts believe the military junta faces dire circumstances, having lost control of significant territory while remaining deeply unpopular among Myanmar's population. The international community confronts a crucial question: will Myanmar remain a forgotten crisis, or will genuine peace efforts emerge before an entire generation knows only violence and displacement? The answer depends on whether external powers choose cooperation over competition, whether ethnic groups can envision shared futures after decades of conflict, and whether the world decides Myanmar's people deserve more than being pawns in strategic games. The path forward remains uncertain, but the urgency for resolution grows with each passing day. We want to hear your voice. What role should the international community play in Myanmar's crisis? Have you been following this situation, and what struck you most about this story? How do you think the earthquake has changed the dynamics of this conflict? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your perspectives truly matter. Join the World Documentaries family today. Subscribe to our channel for more compelling explorations of global conflicts, geopolitical analysis, and the human stories behind the headlines. Hit that like button if this documentary opened your eyes to Myanmar's complex reality, and share it with anyone who wants to understand our interconnected world better. Together we can build a community that thinks critically about global affairs. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.